Every now and then, I read a story that I feel I must share with everyone. Today, we will be reading I Was 19 When I Walked Away from the Arranged Marriage My Parents Chose for Me, and I Am Still Paying the Price. The story is by Sona Jepsen, and it's a 7-minute read. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Belen Creations is a small jewelry company based in Miami that is inspired by nature and poetry. The mission of Belen Creations is to inspire an audience that loves to give back to the arts community. I have these beautiful beaded necklaces. This is the heart tulip one. This is one of my favorites. They also have these beautiful pearl earrings, perfect for the moon lover in your life. By supporting Belen Creations, you're supporting a women-owned small business. And eventually the goal is for many of the profits to go to art programs for children. That is the big mission. But first, we need your help. You can support by shopping at belencreations.com. I mean, how beautiful are these pearl moon earrings? So beautiful. I was 19 when I walked away from the arranged marriage my parents chose for me, and I'm still paying the price. By Sona Jepsen. I boarded a plane at 19 with one suitcase and a marriage contract waiting for me back at home. My extended family believed I was going to the United States for school. In reality, I was running from the life of a good daughter they had scripted for me. The man I was supposed to marry was someone I had known since childhood, 5 years older, from a wealthy Sikh family, my sister's classmate living on the 14th floor of our high-rise building in Mumbai. He was my first crush. When I was 12, with oily braids and Coke bottle glasses, I thought he was handsome and charming. I spent hours imagining what it would be like if he chose me. By the time I was 17, the fantasy had cracked. I was the studious, obedient girl, staying up late to prepare for exams. From my window on the second floor, I could see his car pull into the garage at 3 a.m., night after night, with a different girl in the passenger seat. While his parents were away at their hill station retreat, he was encouraged to, quote-unquote, get his experience. I, meanwhile, was expected to safeguard my virginity and reputation. The double standard was a cage I began to feel closing in around me. By the time my parents told me they had arranged my marriage to him, my girlhood crush had given way to the sharp clarity that this was not the man or the life that I wanted. My parents supported me going to the US because my husband-to-be was headed to Harvard Business School. They thought it would give us a chance to get to know each other. Their plan was clear. I would study, he would take responsibility for me, and within a few months he would propose, and I would return home to India to be married to him. 2 years. That was the deal. I was stamped in black ink on my visa. It was stamped in black ink on my visa, and stamped even harder into my future. Just a couple of months into grad school, I flew to Boston to see him. He proposed in his Cambridge apartment, porch parked downstairs, Clapton Plain, 2 engagement rings laid out, one for me to wear during the day and one to wear at night. By all appearances, it was a dream, but it wasn't mine. I said no. The phone tree lit up instantly. He called his mother called mine. Within hours, I was told to leave Boston. I had flown first class from Los Angeles to Boston to see him. Now I was broke and carrying my bag onto a Greyhound bus to take a long ride back to California. That was the first time I felt the cost of my choice. Back in Claremont, I was renting a room from an American couple who fought loudly every night as their marriage dissolved. Their arguments became my soundtrack. Who would keep the couch? Who forgot the groceries? Who failed whom? In Mumbai, the nights had been filled with palm trees swaying outside my window and my cousin's laughter. Now, in between the couple's arguments, silence pressed against me. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the silence at home grew too. Phone calls with my parents became brief and brittle. Invitations to weddings stopped. Funerals happened without me. At one wedding I wasn't invited to, an uncle referred to me as I had dishonored the family name. That's what it feels like to be exiled, alive but erased. All the while, the 2-year countdown clock ticked on. I cried in the shower so no one would hear me. I filled out forms that asked for an emergency contact and left them blank. I was 19 years old and already felt homeless in 2 countries. On my first day of classes, I had walked in late and saw him sitting at the far end of a long seminar table. He was beautiful. White skin, blondish red hair, nothing like I had ever seen before. He wasn't untouchable in the way my Boston fiancé seemed, but in a way that made me pause. A couple of months later, this young man and I were both working at the economics department at our school. I was sitting in the department office, stuffing envelopes for a prospective students, when he noticed my once white but now pink-tinged tube socks peeking out of my pants. He smiled awkwardly and asked me if I needed help with laundry. I laughed. It was the first time an American man had offered to help me with something as ordinary as laundry. For the first time, I thought, this is what love could look like. Not control, not duty, just kindness. He knew about the arranged marriage, but he was blissfully naive about what it meant. When my family asked for his birth time to make an astrological chart, he politely declined, not realizing how bold that refusal was. Our love grew quietly. Late night takeout, study sessions, small moments of being chosen and choosing back. The 2 years passed. With a recession underway, jobs were scarce. Sponsorships to stay in the country even more scarce. I left Los Angeles for Indianapolis, the only place I could find a job. My bosses were promised to sponsor my paperwork. My bosses there had promised to sponsor my paperwork. For months I believed them. I worked harder, stayed later, and said yes to everything. Then I realized they had been lying. No paperwork had ever been filed. I learned the American way, the hard way. Rent checks bouncing, stretching 1 packet of ramen across 3 meals, calculating whether I could afford gas to get to work. I watched my friends graduate while I was left behind. Eventually, I applied to a new company and they kept their word. They'd sponsored my work permit, which led to a green card, which led to residency. For the first time in years, I felt the ground under my feet. I married the sweet boy from the economics department. I mailed photos home. I don't know if my parents looked at them or if they shoved them in a drawer. They never told me. For 10 years, we were estranged. No calls, no visits. I had become the daughter who ran away and was erased from family gatherings. Then, after I had 3 children, something shifted. My parents realized I wasn't going to get divorced. They came to visit my family in Indianapolis. Our reconciliation was slow and cautious, but it was real. My kids met their grandparents. For a while, it felt like maybe we had bridged the impossible gap. Then tragedy shifted everything again. My parents died within months of each other, and with them went the fragile bridge we had begun to rebuild. The wound remains tender and unfinished. Today, India is not quite home and not quite gone. It's a place I return to as both daughter and stranger, carrying love and loss in equal measure. Decades later, my life looks shiny from the outside. A career, a husband I chose, 3 wonderful children. However, I still keep a ledger of what it all cost. My mother's grief, my father's disappointment, the uncle who called me names, the cousins whose weddings I missed. People want the Hollywood version of my story, the daring escape, the triumphant reinvention, and yes, there were moments that felt like that. But there were also nights I fell asleep, wondering if belonging might have been easier than freedom. Here's what I've learned. You can love your family and still refuse the life they chose for you. You can be proud of your resilience and still ache for the birthdays you missed. You can build a home and still get homesick when you smell a dish that smells like your mother's cooking. Freedom doesn't cancel out loss. They live side by side for me. I didn't just walk away from a man I once crushed on. I walked away from the script written for me. The porch, the rings, the paperwork battles, the silence, the belonging that came with a price tag I couldn't pay. And I walked into the messy, fragile, beautiful chosen life I built instead. I lost the family that raised me, but I gained the family I chose. That's a price I'd pay again. Love, culture, family, religion, identity. There are so many themes that come to mind when listening to Sona's story. A simple search estimates that over 50% of all marriages worldwide are arranged, with the practice remaining prevalent across Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. India is reported to have one of the highest rates of arranged marriage, estimated at around 90%. India also has one of the lowest divorce rates in the world, estimated at around 1 to 1.3% of all marriages. Strong social, cultural, and family pressures often contribute to the low official rate. It's important to note that one of the key statistics and trends listed was the topic of separation versus divorce. Many couples in India live in unofficial separation rather than filing for legal divorce due to social stigma. As for the US, the lowest marriage rate was reached in 2022. Approximately 40 to 50% of first marriages in the US are projected to end in divorce. The good news is the rates have been beginning to fall. No matter what your views on marriage are, I think we can all agree in the beauty that Sona described in her story of being chosen and choosing her husband. And when she paused and wondered what love could look like, as opposed to control and duties, but instead acts of kindness. It's almost as if there is a romance to having choice, as opposed to having a role feel imposed or obligatory for you to step into. I don't believe anybody in our modern day would find it romantic if they looked beside them and said, well, this person's here because they feel obliged to, and not by choice, not by free will. I imagine that's what individuals who have been in a beautiful, long, healthy marriage would say, that it's an act of choosing someone every day and being chosen back. No matter where you stand today in your life journey, my belief is, first you love God, you love Jesus, and then you love yourself. Because you learn to love yourself from the love you receive from your Heavenly Father. And only after you have received that love and have learned to love yourself, then you are ready to love somebody else. Especially in that covenant of marriage, which I, of course, think is so beautiful and really do aspire to one day. Thanks for listening. Have a beautiful day.